From day one, we were really big on sharing voice of customer clips.
That one decision, making it as easy as possible to share what customers actually said, changed everything.
And we kept getting requests to use our customer onboarding checklist in the sales process. So last summer was when we finally were like, all right, we're doing this. And we officially launched.
Before we go any further, if you're not already subscribed, now's the perfect time. Every week we go behind the scenes with marketers to learn what's working and what's not. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out.
When we hear feature requests, we think, is that a star customer use case?
You'll learn the simple system they use to share these voice of the customer clips across the entire company. And you'll also hear about the star customer filter, which helps them decide which feedback actually matters.
If they were to churn, that would be a huge problem because they should be the exact use case that we're building for.
Plus, you'll learn why making voice of customer easy is a lot more important than making it perfect. With that, let's dive into today's show. Welcome back to Horizons Podcast, where I convince marketers to spill their secrets for the rest of us. I'm your host, Nate Desmond, and today I'm thrilled to be sitting down with Kim Hacker. Kim is COO at Arrows, a customer onboarding and sales room platform who specializes in making AI and automation accessible for non-technical teams. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'd love to start with digital sales rooms. This is something I've heard about in the context of making deals, but in the context of sales is a bit new to me. How do you think about a digital sales room for a sales team?
Honestly, sales rooms are kind of new to me as well, which I know sounds kind of crazy because that's half of our product. But sales rooms, I guess maybe I'll tell you a little bit about how we came up with that at Arrow. So we have had a customer onboarding product for our founders, like we're bootstrapping it from 5 years ago. But we raised a seed round 4.5-ish years ago, started building a team. So we've been like really out in the market in a bigger way for the last like 4.5 or so years. So we've been on like the customer success, customer onboarding side of things. And we kept getting requests to use our customer onboarding checklist in the sales process. And so before those requests started coming in, I wasn't familiar with a digital sales room either. It had never come across my desk. I used to actually work in sales, but I think it was before the digital sales room time. And so I started learning about them. We started kind of poking around. We saw that there was like a market for digital sales rooms. And it was a thing that we always kind of thought we would probably do in some way. But we just kept getting more and more demand from people who, especially from like our existing customers that were using Arrows for onboarding. They were like, our sales team would really like to be able to use this as well and kind of create a cohesive process from sales to customer onboarding. And so last summer was when we finally were like, all right, we're doing this. And we officially launched or like did our big public launch of sales rooms just in February this past year. So they're still like new even for us, but we've really gone pretty hard. Like we're an 11-person team, but we've gone really deep into sales rooms and have a lot of feature parity with the existing kind of teams out there. But basically, so all that to say, it's new for me too. I'm not like a digital sales room expert, but we've been really, really going in deep. And I've been going deep into like how sales teams are using digital sales rooms, all of that stuff in the sales process over the last really like 6 to 9 months. And I think the biggest thing is like, there's a lot of things, but one, sales reps just don't have time to do like manual work in between their calls. So like we want sales reps to have more calls. We want them to have more demos. We want ideally a sales rep's calendar is packed with calls and not like 30-minute gaps in between all their calls to do admin work. And so digital sales rooms and the way that we've kind of built them at Arrows is they're AI powered. So basically we can see all of the context inside the CRM and kind of automatically show exactly what your buyer needs in order to move forward and make a decision. And then the other piece is there's oftentimes a lot of stakeholders, a lot of internal selling that's happening on the buyer side that the sales reps actually don't get any visibility into. And so you want to try and control that narrative. And so that's what the digital sales rooms allows reps to do is like share everything that we just talked about on the call. We had this alignment, but now you're going to go share it with your CFO. Like I, as a rep, want to control what you're saying to your CFO. So send them this with everything that they need in order to kind of understand what's happening in the deal.
Smart.
Very long-winded answer, but
That's fascinating. Thank you for that sort of behind the curtains answer.
I
love that element that came out of your answer of how this wasn't even the intended product that you were initially building, but through building something else, you found there was a big need for this. And when I looked at your Arrows homepage, the 3 products listed, 2 of them have to do with digital sales rooms, and one of them is the original actual onboarding product. So it's fascinating how it can really guide you in a new direction.
Totally.
What was the system or process that allowed you to hear what your customers were saying and actually collate that rather than having it just spread across the org and no one actually realized, oh, there's actually a big theme here we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I will say that since day one, so I was the second employee that joined at Arrows, and when I joined, we were using Grain, an AI note taker. It was the first time I'd ever used one, 4.5 years ago. And like from day one, we were really big on sharing voice of customer clips. So when it was just me and our head of customer success and our two co-founders, like we were sharing clips from every call because especially in the early stages, we were figuring out like what is this product? Like who are our customers? And so we have always been a company that is learning from what our customers are actually telling us versus like what competitors are doing or what we're finding online. It's like, let's hear from the people who are actually talking to us. And then I will say our product org is like insanely good at distilling that and understanding how to like capture that and clarify what customers are saying and kind of design that into our product. So it really started from, like, listening to customers, sharing the exact thing, so, like, us not trying to distill ourselves, but, like, sharing the exact clips from our calls with our entire team, and then us being like, "Okay, there's always been something here, but now it's like people really, really want this, and so what do we need to do in order to build what they want?"
That's interesting. Does Grain make it very easy to clip these moments and share it?
Super easy. Yeah, we still there's ways to do it automatically, like, you can automatically clip and share in Slack for, like, based on certain terms, but honestly, like, we still do it pretty manually just because we are doing so many calls, and I think what we care about is that the clips are valuable, and so if there's valuable clips that come up, we still just kind of say, like, "Oh, that was a thing." We maybe, like, highlight it during the call and then go and share it with the team afterward.
That's incredible. I love how those choices in tools, which kind of starts to tie into your current role as COO, have such a big impact on the culture of a company that if you have a tool that makes it easy to clip what the customer is saying, you probably share a lot more than if you don't have that tool or you have a tool that doesn't make it easy to do it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
especially when you
incredible.
think about, like, most of the stuff that we're capturing from our buyers and from our customers and, like, for sales and CS, the thing that's actually most important for them to do after a call is do whatever they said they would do with the buyer or the customer, and so,
Yeah.
we wanna make it easy for them to share, like, also the voice of customer clips, and so having like, for them to have to remember that and have it be, like, a task afterward is just way too much to ask, in my opinion, and, like, not how we want them spending their time, so having a tool that just makes it easy to clip it is really valuable.
And that's what's very exciting to me about AI is it opens these whole new worlds of things that you can do that you couldn't have done at all before. But it also makes it very challenging because like you mentioned, it sort of makes it harder to look at what your competitors do and say, oh, let's just build what they build because we know that works. But you actually don't know anymore because AI has changed everything. But then if you build your own tool, that comes with the disadvantage of you don't really know if it's going to work and you have to do trial and error and try to test new features and new ideas and see what sticks. How do you, when you're not looking at competitors and you're just looking at what the customers say, how do you decide which feature will actually stick and which feature won't be worth building?
Yeah, we certainly keep an eye on our competitors, like, we're aware of what they're doing, and we're aware of, like, their big product launches, but I would say, like, I think it's something that I've just been really proud of. I've been at Arrows for 4.5 years, and it's something I've been really proud of since the beginning is, like, we have our own vision for what the product is gonna be, and that vision changes, but, like, generally, I think our team as a whole has a really good understanding of our customer, and so we get all of these feature requests, of course, but I think we're really good at bucketing them into like, okay, this is interesting. We have a notion at Arrows of like a star customer use case, which is like similar to an ICP, but it's actually more granular on like these are our very small list of like the perfect customer for us, meaning they have the perfect use case. They basically like if they were to churn, that would be a huge problem because they should be the exact use case that we're building for. And so a lot of times when we hear feature requests or we think about what we're doing next for the product, we think about is that a star customer use case? So this core kind of use case that we believe is what we're building for, like does it fit into that? And that is that something that will accelerate the way our star customers are using our product. So that's kind of how we tend to orient around things.
It's really clever. So you found these customers that already resonate with what you offer. And then you just try to make sure that whatever new thing you build is going to resonate with them. And in that way, I guess it makes sense that you don't end up with a product that has a whole bunch of features for everyone, but nothing that one person would say, I really want this.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
really, really smart. How
Yeah. Yeah, because I
interesting.
think we're always gonna have customers that are still good fits, like, we'll still sell to them, we'll still target them, they're still good fit customers, but we will typically prioritize requests from someone who has a star customer use case over
Yeah.
one that doesn't quite fit exactly, like, the vision for where we wanna take the product.
And do you feel like AI and this area of vibe coding makes it easier to build these features faster, or is it still sort of a similar process just to do the right feature and build it in the right way?
So building the feature, yes, I'm a lot less involved in like the product side of things, but my understanding of how our product team is working is like, yeah, building the feature, we are certainly using AI and that is helping. But a lot of the thoughtful work comes from shaping the features and like how does this fit into our larger roadmap and how does this fit into like the overarching company strategy. And so I think that's a part where like we are not, I mean, I don't want to speak for our product team, but like I think we that is still like our minds and our like our instincts and our team's kind of understanding of things, and we're not using AI really for like prioritizing which features to build. It's really for actually like shipping the code. It's certainly helping and helping us ship faster, but I think so much of it is still like very much human founder driven, like here's what we're deciding is the best thing to build.
Is interesting. And one of the things that made me want to talk to you was are a COO and you're in the operations world, but you also have worked in marketing before. I think you were working with the sales team in one of your past roles. You've had this very generalist career across a bunch of different disciplines. And you mentioned recently from more of the marketing side that you had taken the stance of not saying on your homepage, will help you close deals, but instead saying more of, will help you to not lose deals or will help make sure the deals you should win go through. How did you think about that decision?
Yes. So our old homepage, when we first launched, we did like a soft launch of sales rooms last fall, and our homepage then was like win more deals, onboard customers faster. And we were like, we need to be outcome driven. Like we need people to understand like why they're purchasing this product. And we liked it. And then I think like once we had launched that, we started noticing like everyone's using that headline or like something. Like it's every sales tool has win more deals on their page. And it started to feel like this is weird. Like we're all building different products, but we're all saying the same thing and it just feels not great. And
Yes.
we actually worked with Fletch, if you're familiar with them, for their product marketing company. And so they kind of help, they basically do like a short sprint of like understanding your business and then helping write the homepage copy. It's Anthony and Robert. I'm gonna not remember their names, but we should link to them because they're awesome and they're just like awesome content to follow on LinkedIn. But we worked with them on our homepage positioning, and a big thing that they talk about is like, and I've now noticed it so much is like nobody knows what any tool does based on anyone's homepage anymore. Like when you go to a product's homepage, it's like win more deals or like accelerate your business. And it's like, okay, so what is this product that I'm going to? And so they're really big on like, make it really clear when someone comes to your website what they're looking at. And so we have just really
Yeah.
oriented and around like, let's talk about what Arrows is, especially because there's actually a lot of people who don't know what a digital sales room is. So we need to explain like, this is not just like the outcome that you're going to get, but like this is the tool, this is a pain point that we're solving. So get like a lot more granular and detailed, which I think feels counterintuitive to people, but is actually like
Yeah.
the best way to add just like a ton more clarity in the buying process.
Yes. Because otherwise, it's easy to just say, make more money, which is kind of the ultimate goal of any business.
Yeah, it's
But
like, okay,
how
that's what
and in what
everyone tool
way?
is like apparently doing. Yeah.
Yes. And it is so easy to default to that. As I was preparing for this podcast, I was writing down my notes of like what I'll link to in the show notes. And I put arrows, comma, to win more deals. And then I read your LinkedIn and was like, okay, delete that part. Because it is so easy to default to that. How do you think about being a generalist and then now being COO. How does that tie together across the course of your career?
Yeah, I think so. I was recently promoted to COO, and I definitely don't think that I would have been in this position had I not had a generalist background. And I think it's really interesting because just a couple of years ago, I was a little bit freaked out about not having like a specialty. As because I've been in sales, I actually went to school for design, so I was like a 3D designer, and I did that for like 8 months. I kind of got like jealous of salespeople's time and income, and I was like, "I wanna do sales instead." So I got into sales. I did, like, a tiny bit of, like, marketing coordination. I did, I did customer onboarding, so, like, that's kinda how I started getting into Arrows is I ran a customer onboarding team at my previous company. So I've kind of been in like a lot of different areas and a lot of different types of companies. I think now in hindsight, so I started getting a little bit freaked out about it a couple years ago. And now in hindsight, I'm just like, it's actually so helpful for me. And especially because I have experience in customer onboarding and sales, I think it really helps me be a good marketer because I'm still doing a lot of the marketing work at Arrows, and I think it really helps me be a good marketer for our buyers and customers because I have been in those roles. So I can like very
Yes.
intuitively understand like, oh, this is how a sales rep would feel or this is how a customer onboarding manager is feeling day to day and like this is the type of language that would resonate with them. And so I'm just like so grateful now that I have such a varied kind of background, even though it definitely I felt nervous about it even just a couple years ago.
And I think that's something that stuck with me also for anyone who's listening who's early in their career. It's very easy to want to leap ahead to the conclusion of your career. But that early changing roles, trying new things, especially in the first like 10 years of your career, is so valuable because it does give you that depth of experience, or really that breadth of experience before you go deep into something in particular. I think it's so worthwhile. I also have done some roles that looking back, or even at the time, was like, oh, I actually don't want to be in this role. But then looking back, I learned so much from it that was well worth the time that I spent there.
Totally.
Really, really valuable. How do you feel your design experience and training has shown up in your work today?
Think that's another thing that I'm like, there was a couple years where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like the type of person that like when I was 10, I was like, I'm going to be a designer. Like that was like my thing that I always wanted to do. And so when I pivoted, like literally I worked as a designer for 8 months and then I stopped and I was like, I was the person who was like going into college, knew what my degree was going to be, knew what my career was going to be, all of this stuff. And then I got away from it and I thought that was so wild. But and so, like, there was a lot of time where I was like, "Oh, I like, wasted my degree because 'cause I'm not using it now," but I'm so grateful that I had that, and I think we actually have a lot of people on the Arrows team who have, like, a design background, and I think it's such a good background to have because, like, honestly, I still do a lot of, like, the marketing design work, like, I'm still me and our CEO are the ones updating our website, and I think it kind of gives you an eye for what high quality design and content and everything kind of looks like. And it gives you like a real attention to detail that I think is just so widely applied to so many different things. Like I just because of my design background, I just see things that other people don't notice that I think is really valuable, especially in an early stage startup where I do kind of have my hands in everything. I think that stuff really matters.
You've been there for 4.5 years, practically from the beginning of the startup. How has the need for marketing evolved over those 4 years? Like, if you were to bring in the perfect marketer, what do you think they should have been doing in year one, two, three, four?
Yeah, I think it's like my instinct is to say that it's evolved, but now it's like that was going to be my instinct. But to be honest, like what has worked for Arrows, honestly, since before I joined, when it was just our co-founders bootstrapping, has always been content. And in fact, this is like a little story, but the way that I found Arrows in order to join. So I was running a customer onboarding team at my previous company, and I was using like a bunch of different tools for that. Like I was trying a bunch of different tools. We were kind of using Salesforce to track like the stages of onboarding. I was using Trello for like my own internal management of where everyone was at. I looked at ClickUp. I was kind of messing around with things. And then one day, my CTO of my previous company happened to follow Daniel, who's the Arrow CEO, on Twitter. And Daniel published this like guide to B2B SaaS onboarding. And so
Yeah.
my CTO was like, oh, Kim would like this because she's running onboarding and is looking for tools. So I read the guide. It was a really valuable, helpful guide for me. Like I needed content. I didn't know anything about onboarding. I was building out my own kind of team and structure. So I
Yeah.
looked at that. It was really valuable. I was like, oh, and they build onboarding software. That's really cool. And so I scheduled a demo with them which then led me to like, oh, I didn't know there were customer onboarding tools out there. So I scheduled demos with a handful of other tools, ended up doing those demos. And when I did the demo with Arrows, Daniel mentioned that they had just raised a seed round. And I happened to DM Daniel on LinkedIn afterward. And I was like, you guys are raising a seed round. If you need someone, I'd love to chat. We chatted for a few months. So, anyway, so that's
Wow.
how I found Arrows. But I think saying that, because the reason I even found that at all is because when it was just two co founders bootstrapping, they wrote this really valuable piece of content that was valuable for me, which was their target audience, to read. And that's what brought me in. And so from the beginning, before I even joined, content has been huge and like an intuitive kind of thing that works at Arrows. We've always found our best results in sales and marketing come from our content. And so I think that's like the number one thing is like put out valuable content for your audience. And that's just like worked so well for us and is like the number one thing that we're orienting around.
That's incredible. I remember going back many, many years ago, I was helping to grow this tool called SumoMe. And we were reaching out to different people to ask them to guest post about it and promote it on their content where they had better distribution than us. And the thing that we realized was you want to give more value than you get. So even in reaching out to these people, rather than just saying like, hey, can we write a guest post, which is kind of value to them, but also editing guest posts can be a pain. And I used to run a blog. It's actually sometimes easier to write your own post rather than bring in a guest poster. And what we would do is actually just run a script on their blog to assess what are the posting times and what are the links and all this stuff. And then identify for them what are the best times of day to publish based on sharing data. So essentially what time of day correlates to the most shares on social media. And we'd give them that and say like, hey, we ran this analysis on your blog. Here are the best times of day for you to post. Also, we'd love to do a guest post about SumoMe. Would you be interested in it? And that was a really interesting learning to me. That was from Noah Kagan, who is sort of the person leading that business I was working for. And I realized that applies to everything. And it's kind of the same thing here in this blog post that you came across, that they gave so much value to you that you were then were like, oh, let me learn more about what they're actually doing on their business. Anytime we can find an opportunity to give value, it really, really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I think just like it's such a core piece that I think feels intuitive and obvious to us, and then we talk to other folks and we're like, "Oh, I think that this is actually kind of unique. Like we're kind of uniquely good at this." And I think it's like a thing that honestly like we stray away from sometimes where we're like, "Let's do this in marketing. Let's do this. This feels like everyone's doing this." And then it's like we always come back to like what has always worked for us, it's always been helpful content, and we just have to, like, keep doing that. We're already naturally good at it, and it's intuitive for us, and so, like, keep doing the things that we're doing well, and yeah, we can dedicate some time to experiments, but, like, that is the core that's always worked.
And that's so interesting because I'm hearing sort of two themes then in what has worked well for Arrows. The one of do something that you're hearing your customers really, really want in the sales rooms. And the other of see the thing you're good at and just keep doing that, lean into the strength. And it's so true. Balancing those two is so essential to growth. How do you
Yeah,
think?
and I would say
Yeah.
one other point on that is, like, I would say both of those come from listening to our customers actually, because, like, even all the content and stuff is, like it's, like, us having a really, really strong sense of who our customers and buyers are and creating content that will resonate with them. So, like, we're not gonna be creating content that is just, like, generic for sales. Like, we are gonna be thinking and, like, interviewing our customers and saying, "Hey, like, what are the things that you're caring about in your day-to-day?" And then us going and, like, having a unique point of view or a unique opinion on that, and then creating content for them about that that's actually gonna be helpful, and something that we would be proud to, like, DM them in a LinkedIn message and say, "Hey, this might help you," versus, like, a thing that just, like, sits there and is, like, someone clicks through it and it's not actually valuable for anyone. But, like, that's kind
Yes.
of, like, our bar, I would say, is, like, our content should be something that we feel proud enough to, like, share individually with a person because we believe it's gonna be that valuable.
And how do you think about measuring that content? Because it's so easy to measure content on like page views or clicks or whatever. But to your point, that may not actually be correlated to your end goal at all.
To be honest, it's not something that we do well. We honestly, like, I think it's we just keep coming back to, like, we look at our we're 99% inbound for our sales pipeline right now, and when we look at our strongest months, they are either the month or the month right after we shipped a really valuable piece of content. And so it's like it's not directly measurable, or we haven't directly measured it in a great way right now, but it's like an intuitive sense of like we know that when we ship good quality content and distribute it, well that I mean, our sales pipeline, like it's an obvious spike when that happens. And so we just need to keep doing that.
That's so interesting. I think it speaks to the importance of KPIs, but also the importance of taste. That sometimes the wrong KPI can lead you in the wrong direction, and just knowing this is what matters. We need to hold an editorial standard, and that eventually really quickly shows up in the sales pipeline, but maybe not in a directly measurable way. So we just do it without having a direct KPI attached.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Like it is tough. Like for myself right now, a lot of what I'm orienting around in my current role is like how are we measuring and making sure that we're hitting the right metrics for each team. And so it does get really
Yeah.
hard for marketing because we're like kind of saying like we're intuitively following this stuff, but it's also really hard to not have a strong metric. I would love to have that, but every time we go down the metric rabbit hole, I feel like it does kind of lead us to not the right things, at least right now. And I think like it's just not a thing that we've nailed or like felt really strong about.
Well, and it's interesting because I'd love to jump into this area of incentives design. And I've noticed over time that it's very powerful. Incentives can really move things, but they can be very powerful in the wrong direction also. If you pick just a slightly off incentive, suddenly you're getting tons of, let's say, page views. And really the thing you want is sales leads. But because the incentive was page views, therefore now instead of publishing the sorts of articles you want, you're publishing like personality quizzes. They get tons of page views, but don't convert to sales leads. How do you think about incentive design as the COO?
It's something that we are just honestly really starting to think about and nail down. And I think we probably don't have a great sense of it right now. I think so we're 11 people right now. So we have been small and we have been like we're all very much aware of what everyone's working on and we're like a very close knit team. So we haven't needed to have that like we've just kind of had like weekly alignment around things and kind of like okay, we're all like saying we're going to do this. So I'd
Yeah.
say we're probably not the strongest there yet, but it's definitely something I'm thinking of just because like, a year ago, I don't know how many people were at like 8 or 7, but like even just like the small jump to 11 feels like nothing, I'm sure for bigger teams, but like it is significant.
Big
It is like,
increase.
oh, we have more people owning things and so we need to be a lot more clear on what that all looks like and I'm still in the early days of kind of learning and figuring that stuff out.
That is quite exciting. And that's a fun stage to go through because there are so many fairly major changes in the company design as you go from 11, 12, 13 and on up. What do you think is the main thing that makes a COO successful at that stage of a company where you are like 11-ish employees and 4 years in?
Yeah, it's tough because I'm like I think what is most helpful for me right now is that I do have a very broad understanding and have since I started here. I've always been a person who has been deep into what other teams are doing and to curious about what other teams are doing and wanting to help those teams improve. And so I think what I'm doing now in my role is like applying that to rather than me executing as much, even though I'm still definitely doing that at such a small stage it's more so like thinking about our broad company goals and then like what does each function need in order to help us hit that. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like it's it's hard because it's definitely a balance because I'm still definitely in execution mode. I guess probably more than most people would advise, but it's also just the reality of our stage and what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to shift more into like understanding people, understanding like how are individuals motivated, how each team can kind of like function independently but also collaboratively to reach like our overarching revenue goals basically as a business.
That makes sense. So sort of giving that North Star of here's our revenue goal and then helping
Yes.
people to understand how they align to that goal.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, revenue right now because I'm mostly working with like what we call our like customer team, which is basically like, all go to market. And so it's like, okay, we have our overarching revenue goal that we're orienting around every month. And so what are the things that tie into that and how does each function tie into that? What are the functions like initiatives within that? And then what are the individuals within each of those functions contributing toward that? So I think it's like the whole like that's honestly like that's been a really really fun thing for me about being COO so far. It's only been like 3 months for me. So I'm still kind of like getting used to it, but it's something that's been really fun and I'm learning is like quite the challenge and I'm definitely like have had days of like it's just like hard to get a lot of things done because like you're just thinking about all the individual people and the individual functions and all of that stuff and like that takes up a lot of brain space and I think I knew that that was the case, but I maybe underestimated how much, like, time and headspace that really takes in a really fun and interesting way. Like, it's something that I think I have some strength in, but I'm definitely like, I just bought the hugest stack of like leadership books because I'm like, okay, I like am interested. I think I have an intuitive sense and like I have a lot of room to kind of grow and develop this too.
Oh, that's so much fun. And it is so interesting when you're
Yeah.
sort of in that in between stage of trying to do more managing or systemic work, but also there's stuff that still just needs to be done that's more executional. And how do you do both? They're very different worlds. That's quite
Yeah.
exciting. That's awesome. One of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things
Yeah. I love it.
that you've written about is the area of AI adoption and how I think every COO and pretty much every leader in the world right now is probably thinking about that. But it's very challenging. And in many ways, the practical outcomes just aren't there yet. You've done a very extensive experiment with some like 27 different meeting note takers. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that and how you think about AI adoption coming out of that experiment?
Yes. Okay. So this is going to kind of come back to like the same kind of theme that I've been talking about like listening to your audience, I guess. But so basically we were going to launch the digital sales room product and I was like, I've like really gotten such a clear sense of like customer onboarding and what everyone wants there for the last 3-ish years. And now I need to like really hone in on what sales reps want these days. And our sales rooms are AI powered. And so I was like, how are people using AI in the sales process with the CRM? Because that's another piece of Arrows. It's like deeply connected to your CRM. So I basically on LinkedIn, I posted and asked like, who are the people who are using AI inside the CRM for sales in the best way? Got a bunch of volunteers. I did 30-minute calls with maybe like a dozen people. And so like this is part of the point too, is like I was certainly expecting people to be like everyone using all these cool tools and everyone kind of having this advanced stuff set up. And what I realized is like everyone, this was back in like January, February, but I would argue that it's still very similar. Everyone was just using their call recordings and then like plugging that into ChatGPT or plugging it into Zapier or like OpenAI integration inside HubSpot. And so um, I was relieved in a way because I was like, "Oh, I'm not as far behind in the AI world as I expected." A lot of people like, "That's what I'm doing." And then I also was like, "Oh, the AI note takers, I knew of it as a space. Our digital sales room product like reads the AI notes that come in from these AI note takers directly." So I was like, "Oh, that's correlated with our product." And really like anyone who's using an AI note taker and a CRM would be a customer of or could be a customer of Arrows. But I was like, there's a million of them. Everyone I talk to is using a different AI note taker. And so I was like, I would be curious to see what the real differences are. And so I ran a big test. It was 22 note takers initially that I had all in one like Zoom call. And I basically turned them all on so they were recording the call. And then I just compared the output of the notes. And I was kind of like, I don't know, we'll see how this goes. And I was actually surprised they were all so different the way they structured them. And so it was really fun. And then I ended up, we got a lot of, people responding to that. We had like 3,000 signups for that guide in the first few days. And so from there, I ended up doing deep dives with, I think, 14 of the founders of those tools to kind of understand, like, okay, I looked into like the quality of the notes that come out of them, but what are the other cool things? Because there's so many, like, some do live sales coaching, some do like deal analysis. Like, there's a lot of advanced kind of, agentic workflows even that they do. And so that's what the founder deep dives are really for, just to kind of like understand what are the other capabilities within these.
Yes. That is incredible. I love how you not only did this as research, but also did it as a piece of content that would bring in further customers. Being in a small team, you get to do a lot of stuff all at once. That's quite cool.
Yeah, and it was fun because, like, again, back to, like, the voice of customer, like, for months after that, it was like, I'm not on that many customer calls anymore, but, like, the calls I was on, people were like, "Oh, you helped me choose this AI note taker," or we would hear from sales that they were, like, in the evaluation process or learning about them from the guide. So it was fun because obviously we hit, like, a very broad audience with it, but we also had a lot of people directly in our pipeline or our existing customers who were reading it and kind of making decisions on their AI note takers based on that too, which was fun.
And I have found one of the things I love most when I'm trying to choose a tool is not having to do the work myself, but having someone that I trust have already
Yes.
done the
Yeah.
work. So I can just be like, okay, what was
Yeah.
your finding? All right, great. I'll use that one.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah,
huge, huge
yeah,
help.
exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I think back to like the AI adoption stuff, and a thing that I've been loosely kind of advocating for is the thing that I tested is like the out of the box notes. So I just turned every tool on and had it record. So, and I think, and I got a lot of like the criticism that I did get when it first went like, sort of viral on LinkedIn was like, this is table stakes. The out of the box notes like mean nothing. Like all of these other tools have all these other cool things like these agentic workflows and all of these things. And which is why I did the founder deep dive series and it was great. But it's been months since I launched that, and I still have my own strong opinion that the out of the box notes for these tools are still really valuable, and I think there are so many people who believe that everyone is setting up AI agents, and if you're on LinkedIn, it seems like that's everyone's lives, and the calls that I see of our customers who are I had a call earlier today that with a VP of sales at a good-sized company, and they're doing like a course about AI and they're pulling all the call recordings into ChatGPT and analyzing them that way manually, which is awesome. But I feel like LinkedIn makes it sound like that's behind. And I'm like, no, that's actually where like most of the people who are using all of this stuff are at. And I think we all just need to be a little bit more realistic that like the out of the box basic AI stuff is still really, really helpful. And the advanced stuff is like actually overwhelming and it's nice to aspire to, but it makes people feel like they're really far behind when actually like everyone's kind of at that same level. Just kind of getting into like still getting into custom GPT is like maybe playing around with like a little bit of agentic kind of stuff, but there's not that many people, in my opinion and my experience, that are like that advanced with AI yet.
I agree. And there are pros and cons. So I actually use, I don't know if I would call it agentic AI, but I use automation with AI in making this podcast.
Yeah,
And so I'll put different stuff in and like have AI suggest titles and thumbnail designs, this sort of thing. And some of it is automated, some of it I do manually. What I found is even the automated part, A, it's hard to set up. You have to like, I've used AppScript and Google Sheets to do it, and it takes a while to set up. Of course, written by AI, but it still takes a while to debug and make sure it's working right. And then B is later on, I might decide, oh, I want to change this just slightly, and it's actually hard to change the automation because in my case, it's hard coded in AppScript. Sometimes that's probably easier depending on the agentic solution you're using. But there are pros and cons. If you're doing it more manually, then it's easy to change it. If you're doing it more automatically, it's easy to replicate it, but harder to change it. One of the themes I'm noticing in this interview is just moving and then adapting as you go. That like try agentic AI, see if you like it, and then you get to learn as you go. Similar to how you learned at Arrows, you started building this customer onboarding, and then you found people also want digital sales rooms. These are the things you only learn when you start experimenting. And so it's worth it to
exactly.
just dive in, start moving, and then figure out where you actually want to go long term. Have you
Yeah, yeah,
found,
just do something.
yes, have you found any particularly powerful AI or agentic AI solutions across the company as COO?
On the go-to-market side, honestly, we're not doing a ton. Like, I would say, and that's where I'm like, in a way, I feel like we're behind. And then I talk to actual, like, much larger teams, and I'm like, oh no, like, there's a lot of people. Like, for example, we work closely with HubSpot, and I have a podcast that we do as well called Onboarding Therapy, and we interviewed Daphne Costa Lopez. If you're familiar with her, she's big on LinkedIn about customer success. But she was saying, at HubSpot, at a company that size, they have like an experimental customer success team that is like they have like a lower workload so that they can experiment with AI tools and stuff like that. And it's so smart. It's like it's amazing. And most companies don't have the bandwidth to say we can do that. And so I think that's like the reality is like, yeah, like that is amazing. And I think it's awesome that they are doing that. And it's not the reality for a lot of companies. And I think some companies certainly could create more space for that for sure. And I think that's actually like probably a separate conversation. But I just do think it's like the reality is that people are, for our customers, it's like customer success managers, sales reps. They're in back-to-back calls all day.
Yeah.
They are responding to customer emails. Like they're doing the stuff that it takes for them to hit their KPIs, and they're not able to be as advanced or get as advanced with the agentic kind of stuff, even though it looks flashy and it looks cool, and I'm sure it would help. But like, it's just the reality that a lot of people are not getting to that right now.
Yes. Yes. The vision that you mentioned earlier is what I'm very excited for. That salespeople, for example, should be able to do what they do best of just doing sales calls and then let AI handle the manual work and the follow up notes and all this stuff afterwards. But it does take a while to actually get there. And sometimes the AI is just not up to the task yet.
I think that part of it, like our customers at Arrows are basically in order to use Arrows, you're like using a CRM and you're using some AI note taker. And so the AI note takers, this is again, like they are actually like the foundation of so much of the AI that anyone on go to market is using. Like marketing is listening to that or should be listening to customer calls and notes from calls. Basically every function should be listening to those. And so that's kind of why I started there too. But that's really like the foundation. And then having those automatically sync into your CRM, and then Arrows and other tools can like do stuff with that CRM or that CRM data. Like
Yeah.
that's actually like the sales reps not needing to do much manual work in between calls, I think is like a very realistic near term goal for people. That is not like super, super advanced to set up and just kind of works out of the box. I think that's probably one of like the AI use cases that I see. Obviously, like not completely eliminating admin work, but I think drastically from like 2 years ago, I think that's getting there really, really quickly.
Yes. Okay. I want to pivot slightly to onboarding because you've worked in onboarding. Now you've worked at Arrows, which the whole company is about onboarding. What do you think most people fail to understand when it comes to onboarding, or most companies mess up when they're doing their onboarding process?
I think that people forget. Okay, so my instinct when you first asked that question is like, I think people forget how much their customers have on their plate. And so I think it's easy in onboarding to be like, oh, like, this isn't that hard. Like, why aren't they doing this or why are they stalling? And it's like, you have to remember that onboarding to your tool is like such a small piece of your customer's job and they want to make it happen. Like they are paying for a tool or a service. And so like they need to be onboarded or, their boss is going to be talking to them about why are we paying for a tool that we're not using. But I think people underestimate the attention that their customers are able to give onboarding. And so I think people get frustrated and don't realize that they need to like really simplify their onboarding process to make it so easy for the customer. Um, yeah, I think it's just like a lack of awareness of like what else they maybe have on their plate. Or maybe not like a lack of awareness, but it's like a understanding that like, hey, you need to make it so easy so that when they do sit down for like the 30-minute block that they have on their calendar this week to go through the steps that you're sending them, they need to be able to complete as much as they can in that 30 minutes.
Yes, yes. And it's so easy for me who built the product or whoever's built the product to think like, oh, this is easy. This is simple. You just click here and then you go here and then you go into settings and you change this. But to someone brand new, where on earth do you begin with that? You recently updated the onboarding for Arrows. What was that like? What changes did you make to your own
Yeah, I'm helping. So we have a head of customer success, and then we have an onboarding or an operations manager, but she's kind of owning customer onboarding and activation right now. And so it's been definitely like a team effort for redesigning that, and we're still in process. Like I think another big thing that I advocate for, and we all advocate for a lot in onboarding, is like it should be evolving very often. In fact, like almost like I would say weekly, where like you are actively looking at what is happening with your customers and saying, hey, like this part of the process is unclear, or this part of the process maybe needs to be moved around because they're getting stuck here all the time. But I think a lot of it has come because I've been more on the ops side of things at Arrows for a while. I've been the buyer and the customer in a lot more cases. And for me, what I found as the customer being onboarded is, and this wouldn't have been intuitive for me, I don't think, until I had experienced it. But the best onboarding experience I had was when the vendor, it was actually an agency that we worked with, had a super rigid, structured process for us to follow. And there was no room for us to like go make up other plans. And so I think there have been times where I've been onboarded to a tool where they're kind of like, yeah, whatever you want. Like we can do whatever. Just decide. And I'm like, no, I need you to tell me what to do because I'm overwhelmed and I'm just like, I'm not thinking about this that much. So when we're on a call, I need your help to be like, here's the best practice. Here's where I'd start.
Yeah.
And then the best onboardings that we've gone through have been people being like, hey, so I know you want to ask this question right now, and that's awesome. On this call, we're actually focusing on just this. So I want to get you to the endpoint on this call. And then the next call, let's save that question. I'll note it. We'll cover it on the next call. But right now, we're not going to get into that. And I was like, oh, you are helping me. You are helping me stay on track for this thing. And you're right. I don't need to get into that right now. And so I think it's like acting as like it's almost like you're acting as like a business coach for someone to be like, I get why you have that question. It's a valid question. And as much as I like want to just like say yes and help you right now, I'm going to move that to the next one because we really need to get this first step done in order for you to make the progress that you want to make.
That's quite cool. It reminds me, I don't know if they always do it this way, but sometimes when I go to Subway, I find it to be quite a decision heavy experience. I don't want a decision. I just want a sandwich.
Yeah.
And then I get asked, like, oh, do you want this
Yeah.
sauce or that sauce? And you want more of this or less of that? And kind of the same thing of, I don't know this as well as the vendor does. So I just want the vendor to tell me what are the best choices here. And then I will maybe make some changes or maybe just go with their recommendation on it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
As the buyer,
Yeah. I think
yes, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, the one other thing that I like is kind of a new thing for me that I'm pushing our team to do, but has helped me as the like buyer or like customer, I guess in this case, is pushing people to act faster. And even like I probably shouldn't even say the word pushing or like nudging people to act faster. So I think it's really easy to in sales and in onboarding to say, okay, like this was a great call. Should we meet again in a couple weeks and see how things are going? And it's like I'm kind of encouraging our team, like, why not say it's Monday today? Why not say let's meet on Thursday? And because I had a vendor do that to me a few months ago, and I was like, yeah, sure, we'll meet in a couple weeks, and I had some homework I had to get done before then,
Yeah.
and it was a founder that was onboarding me actually, and he was like, well, what if we met on Thursday? And I was like, you're totally right. Like, I, if we met in 2 weeks, I would not have gotten that homework done because I'm going to wait until the day before to get it done. And then I'm going to forget what I was supposed to get done and why I'm getting it done. And
Yes.
like, realistically, yeah, it's on my mind. So why don't I just go after this call, get the thing done that's going to actually only take me 10 minutes. And then we can meet on Thursday and actually make progress. And I think people feel, especially in sales, I get that it's more pushy, but in onboarding, it's like they're already paying or they're already like signed up to be a customer. Like you're nudging them. And again, like this comes back to like almost being their business coach of like, hey, you bought this, you're paying for this, you want this outcome. And so I'm going to help you get there. And totally fine if you want to meet in 2 weeks. But what if we met a little bit sooner and kind of stayed on track? And that way you can actually hit your goal at the end of the month instead of taking another 2 months to do that.
Yes. Yes. And sort of that theme of providing recommendations, being open to suggestions for otherwise, but providing recommendations that are actually best for both parties, really, when you're wanting to onboard to a product. How do you
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
as the buyer now for many of the products your company is buying, do you prefer one single company that you can buy many things from? Or do you prefer these like smaller one off providers of like granola or grain or this kind of thing?
I would say probably my instinct is smaller specific tools that connect. Like that is the caveat is like like Arrows is CRM centric. Like we are very much and we operate on the go to market side of the business. We are very much CRM centric. Like our CRM, we use HubSpot. HubSpot is like our place that everything connects to. So we have product data syncing in there. We have basically like it's very hard for us to pull the trigger on a tool that does not integrate deeply with HubSpot. That's
Yeah.
how we've designed our product as well. Like that's kind of a fundamental core belief of ours, at least right now.
Yeah.
But like HubSpot does have, a bunch of different tools. Like they have a social scheduling tool, for example, that we've never used. And I think we probably have, the right access for it. But like it's there are point solutions that like if we need that, we would choose that just integrates with HubSpot because it's actually going to be more feature rich and be what we need. So I think it depends, but generally for like specific things that we need done, I would rather have an individual tool that connects to the CRM versus like having the CRM and HubSpot, for example, have to build absolutely everything for us. Because Granola or Fathom or whatever, they're going to go deeper. Like that's what their singular focus is on call recordings.
Yeah.
So for me, like HubSpot call recordings would have to do a lot in order to meet where the other call recording tools are, as an example.
That's interesting. And what's the advantage to you of having these smaller single solving tools rather than one bigger tool that maybe isn't as good for each of the individual solutions, but is a single thing to connect to?
I think it depends on what it is, but, like, I think just generally, it's like if I trying to think of what, like, the best example is. I guess for me, it's like if I need something done, I'm gonna choose the right thing to get it done, and it's hard for me to say that because, like, for example, like, there are lots of tools when we go back to, like, the marketing analytics, there's lots of tools for that are much better and more granular than HubSpot. And we have made a choice that we don't need that granular of data yet. So we use HubSpot reporting for all of that and it does great. So like that's a thing that we are just not prioritizing. So in that sense, it's really great to have like the CRM or one tool be able to do a lot of things because those are things we're like, it doesn't make sense for us to include that. They're very expensive tools. And so for us right now, we are fine with the level of reporting that we get from HubSpot.
Yeah,
But for like an AI note taker, everything I've said so far, our customer calls and voice of customer is like incredibly important to us. And so that's something we're like, we are going to use a tool that focuses on that and does that really, really well. And that matters a
yeah.
ton because that's a core part of like every function of our business. And so for me, like it would take a lot to say, like, oh, we're going to go with a less built out or less functional version of that because that's just something that's so core to what we need.
That makes a lot of sense. So sort of knowing what do you really need, and then what are the
Yes.
easiest solutions that solve for that need, not over solving for a need that
Yeah.
doesn't exist, but also not settling for something that you really need the better version.
Yeah, and I would say, like, so that's where, like, keep we are big, we're HubSpot, app partners, and we work closely with them, and we love HubSpot, and so I think that is a thing that is great about having, like, a CRM or, like, a tool that is a platform that has a lot of different functionality within it, is, like, we can reach for HubSpot first for most things,
Yeah.
and, we're paying for so much within HubSpot already, and so there's a lot we can do there, and then if the native functionality inside HubSpot doesn't quite work for us, there's a lot of tools that integrate with it, and so that's what we kind of reach for next. It's like, okay, if we're like, "Oh, we definitely need the next kind of version of this," then there's lots of different options there, and that's when I would reach for it.
So interesting. What a good model by HubSpot to be able to have the basic version there and then also the
Yeah,
integration where you can easily integrate something else. You've mentioned
yeah, yeah.
that ops people need to do internal marketing because very often the work that ops is doing can be kind of silent and not visible even internally. How do you go about doing that internal marketing?
I honestly like I just think about internal marketing for every function. I think it's really like for example, at Arrows, like sales has the most visible metrics, right? Like we're all looking at revenue, the company runs on our new revenue. And so like that's the most visible metric that everyone can see like, oh, we closed a new deal. That's an easy thing to celebrate. But most other functions, I think just all need to do a better job of like sharing what they're working on that is driving the business forward. And I think sometimes it feels like, oh, nobody cares about this awesome customer call that I had or this amazing customer feedback that I just got or this whatever it ends up being. But I just feel like sharing wins is so important. I as a COO, I want to see that kind of stuff. Like I love seeing little highlights of customers saying, "Hey, love that new feature you guys shipped." Or we even just got an email today being like for like a very old email sequence that we put together that someone just enrolled in. They were like, "This was so valuable." And I'm like, those like little wins where people are like, "Oh, that thing that that person did 2 years ago is really valuable." I think those types of things, I think people get, like, embarrassed to share, and I think those wins of, like, "Hey, we got this awesome feedback," there's just nothing better to see than, like, small things that are working well within the company, so I think it's, like, even just, like, as small as that, and just
Yeah.
also finding a way to point your work back to the company initiatives because the reality is, like, each function has to be contributing in some way. So to be able to point back to saying, like, in marketing, we shipped this piece of content, we got this much website traffic, we got this much pipeline, whether you can directly attribute it or not, but like, hey, in this month we shipped this, this is what happened out of it that we can kind of like correlate at least is awesome. In customer
Yeah.
success, sharing like this is a customer that got activated in this many days. We had these challenges, but we worked through it and we got them up and running and now they're expanding. Like all of those kind of things I think are just things that everyone needs to make sure that they're advocating for themselves in a obviously like in an authentic way, like not overdoing it. But I think most people could probably advocate for themselves and like share their wins a little bit more.
That is really a cool point. And it reminded me, so I work at Google, and one of the things that is publicly known that I can talk about is peer bonuses. Have you heard of peer bonuses before?
No, I haven't.
It's this really cool concept that Google does. And I think It's just very awesome, where anyone in the company can send a bonus to anyone else in the company. And generally, you'd say, like, hey, this person, you did a really good job on this. Thank you for helping out with this, going above and beyond. And it sends an email to the person and to whoever else you CC. But then on the back end, it also sends like $100 bonus to them. And it's fully automated. You don't have
Oh,
to do
wow.
anything. Presumably, the payroll team also doesn't have a lot of work to do related to it. So it's just an easy way to send a little bit of extra money from the company to this person. And to your point, call out like, hey, you helped in this deal. This choice you made it easier to close the deal. Thank you
Mm,
very much. I love that approach
yeah.
of finding the, even if it's not directly connected to revenue like sales would be, to call out these other decisions and acts that can help the company to grow.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Okay, I want to go in a slightly different direction. You've written that you need to leap and sow the net, which I love that way of putting it. How do you know that you can sow the net and that you won't leap and then discover that the net cannot be sown?
Okay, I have to first give a shout out because I did not come up with that, and I actually assumed that that was like a widely known like saying, and I found out that my friend made it up. And so shout out to Miriam Abel who made up that. She's a writer and she's amazing, and so she wrote that kind of thing up because the common thing that people hear is or say is leap and the net will appear, and I've always like disliked that because it's like so it implies that like there will just be something to catch you, and I think the trust that you can sow the net, I think comes from other people. Like, okay, so maybe backing up, the reason I posted that on LinkedIn, or I was kind of thinking about this and ended up posting it on LinkedIn, is because we had a new team member, and I got the sense that they were being a little bit timid or like holding back on launching new things because they were like wanting to make it perfect. Again, I'll keep saying like we're a small startup and we are just like we have to be moving fast. And I had full trust in this person. I was like, you've been here for this long already. Like I have been so impressed with the work that you've done so far. I have all the confidence that you will figure it out. So like you might not have all of the answers right now, but I know that if something goes wrong, if you launch this and something comes up, you will figure it out because I could tell by the way you did these other few projects that you will figure it out. And so that's where I kind of was re-inspired by that of like the leap and sow the net kind of thing of like leap and then you will sow the net, you will figure it out. And I think I have gained a lot of confidence in that during my time at Arrows because honestly, like if I think back to 4.5-ish years ago, I mean, I didn't know it's half at least of what I know now and what I've learned now. And I think what has helped me and helped me grow the most is like saying yes to things and then figuring it out. And that's a thing that I think I do have a skill set in, but I also have like a confidence in at this point of like, well, I figured this stuff out so far. And so I'll figure out the next thing. And so I just think that there's like a confidence that comes from yourself and from leaders. Like, to be honest, our CEO, Daniel, who I've always worked really closely with, he definitely has been encouraging of like, when I have challenges, he's like, you figured it out the last time. Like, I'm confident you'll do that. And so I think believing in yourself and like proving and looking back at times when you have solved things yourself or figured things out and then also having like leaders that kind of encourage that and remind you of like, hey, you got this. Like, and also like
Yes.
nothing is ever going to be perfect. You can't hold on to things forever waiting for it to be perfect or hoping for it to be perfect.
I love that so much. I remember early in my career, and still to this day, I've sometimes been very stressed, like, oh, can I fix this? Can I solve this? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. And then I might like postpone some life thing and focus on the work because I'm like, oh, will I be able to solve this? And I've realized more and more I will be able to solve this. I've done it before. I have
Hmm.
confidence in myself being able to do this again. And I have enough confidence that I will leave this on the weekend. I'll come back to it Monday, and I'm confident on Monday I will solve this problem. And that, to your point, really is, it helps you to tackle bigger things. And it also helps you to not stress unnecessarily about the things that you will be able to figure out once you get to it.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. And so like trying to protect and like anticipate every problem that's going to come up is just like, it's it's useless anxiety. And so like
Yeah.
ship it. I mean, obviously like get it to a certain extent, or to a certain like level of quality, but then like ship it. And then, yeah, if something breaks or if something happens, like we will figure it out. And I think it's just a good thing to like remind ourselves. And also like it's such a confidence building thing too, to have a leader or yourself or ideally both kind of reminding you like, hey, you did that once. And so you can do it again. And to be honest, like I mentioned, I was just promoted to the COO role a few months ago, and I have certainly had days of major imposter syndrome of like, okay, like I'm scared. I don't know if I like know everything. I'm not like the perfect COO on week 2. And I think what I have to keep reminding myself is like I have figured everything out until this point. There's been a lot of things in the last 4.5 years in particular, or even before that. Like I started a customer onboarding program when I 4 months prior had never heard of customer onboarding. Like there have been so many things, and I'm using myself, but I think everyone could think back to like the things that they have just figured out, even though they weren't trained in it, they didn't have this level of expertise, and just reminding myself and remind yourself that you have figured everything out up until this point. And so the next thing you will figure out. And yeah, I think it's like being able to figure things out is such a strong quality and skill set that I really appreciate in others and like teammates and people who are willing to kind of just like dig into things. And it's if you have that skill set, it's just like so important to remind yourself that like that is how you've gotten to this point is you figured it out and you will figure it out and you will sow the net, but you have to take the first leap.
I love that so much. That's incredible. Well, before we come to the end of the interview, I have a lightning round for you. So I'll throw out some quick
Okay.
questions and you can give brief answers, you can give long answers. The lightning's the question, not the answer. So the first question, Slack notifications or email updates?
Slack 100% all day. I would love to not have email in the next few months.
Lead scoring or behavioral triggers?
Ooh, I'm not an expert in this, but I would orient my instinct would be behavioral triggers.
Data visualization or raw numbers?
Start with data visualization and then validate with raw numbers.
Oh, smart. Documentation or moving faster?
Moving faster 100%.
Early AI adoption or waiting for stability?
I would say early AI adoption and just at least testing.
Smart. And this one, I think I might know the answer. Formal courses or hands on experimentation?
Hands-on experimentation for sure.
Fantastic. Well, where can people go to learn more about you, Kim?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So Kim Hacker is my name on LinkedIn. I've got like a yellow background on my picture, so you can find me there. And then I work at Arrows, so it's arrows.to is our website where you can find all of our information too.
Fantastic. If you're on YouTube, they'll all be below. And if you're on a podcast app, look in the show notes. Kim, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.